And welcome to the Islander podcast. I believe this is episode 9, and happy Canada Day to everybody, and to my friends back in Newfoundland, happy Memorial Day, first and foremost. To me, as a Newfoundlander, that's certainly the most important thing. What about you, Ernest?
It is the absolute only thing I generally celebrate on July 1st, because for me, it is the quintessential day of this wonderful place we live in. Or I live in, and where you temporarily do not reside.
Yeah. That's probably going to change come September, I would imagine.
Yes, so we hope so.
So how was your Canada Day, buddy?
Well, I took in some ceremony, and I went on a boat tour, which was actually quite enjoyable. Spent 2.5 glorious hours cruising down the Humber River. Crystal Waters boat tour, if anyone wants to. They didn't pay me to say this. I just had such a good time on that boat tour that I thought I'd give them a shout out. So, it was wonderful, man. It was a good day for it, and it was just trying to do a few different things this summer. So, expect a few more adventures from me.
Awesome.
How about you, man? What'd you do all on this fine Canada Day?
I've actually been indoors watching the free agency in the NHL, and I must say, as a Montreal fan, I want to crawl under a rock because the Toronto Maple Leafs just became the favorites to win a Stanley Cup.
Well, they did get John Tavares, and they've paid him what? They're going to pay him what? $77 million
over
7 years.
Yes, $11 million a year. Yeah.
Which is, oh man, I wish I had his money right now.
And you know he's only 27 years old.
He's old. He's younger than us, Lenny.
I know.
We've got a lot of work to do to catch up. So we got to try to get some. We got to get some of that Patreon money.
I think so. It might be time.
But yeah, no, I mean, and what did Montreal get? Blahnik again.
We took back our ex-boyfriend again. That's all we did.
Well, I mean, but at the same time, I mean, this has been a bad year for Montreal. We got rid of so many talented players and replaced them with people, is all I can say. I mean, we got rid of Galchenyuk, which, I mean, was essentially the best player on Montreal. He was the best player. We lost Subban, and we lost Galchenyuk. And who do we have? Drouin, who is underperforming as he is.
Yeah, and beat up goaltender who used to be the world's best, who unfortunately just doesn't have it anymore.
No, and but I mean, that's because he's had to bear the weight of that team on his shoulders, though. I mean, he is the only thing keeping Montreal afloat, and the GM and management are just running Montreal into the earth.
Terrible.
I mean, to sacrifice PK Subban. But you know what? And I think it's honestly, Lenny, I mean, I know this is a bit off of our usual podcast topics, but I take some interest in this. I honestly think it's because Subban and Galchenyuk and a lot of the good players that they've gotten rid of, they're not French.
I agree. And they actually speak out when things aren't going well. So the team starts losing and they're vocal. And I don't think management appreciates that.
I also think it's actually a bit of racism because, and usually I don't use this accusation, but I think about it. I mean, who have we lost over the last year or two? Devon Smith-Pelly, who went on to get a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And Devon Smith-Pelly, I mean, he's not a fantastic player, but he had that, he was good. And he was a bit bigger, which, I mean, Montreal is not a big team.
No.
Height-wise, they're tiny. They're manlets. I mean, they should be the Montreal Manlets instead of the Montreal Canadiens now. Because, I mean, they're all tiny, and they're all French, or slowly but surely. Well, I mean, Max Domi is
European. And
Max Domi is Albanian, and they're not Russians either. We're kicking out the Russians.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what their direction is, but Toronto is making so many wonderful moves. And I'm jealous that
absolutely
they should have gotten. I mean, what was his name? Who's the general manager of Detroit of Toronto right now? He used to be with Detroit Red Wings. You know
So
who I'm talking about?
the president is Brendan Shanahan.
No,
So he was part of,
is Brendan Shanahan? No, I thought he was. No, I'm thinking Steve Yzerman. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Steve Yzerman is with Lightning.
But you have two players that were part of the Detroit Red Wings dynasty for years who retire and get very prominent positions with two NHL organizations who are essentially struggling. I mean, Tampa Bay wasn't very strong. They did win a cup in 2007, I believe, but since then they've been in a rebuild process. Toronto has been terrible since 1967, and you take two guys who played during a dynasty, who were coached properly, who understood hockey, who understood management, who went on to take those roles and have now built two very strong teams in the Eastern Conference.
Well, it'd be Mike Babcock. That's what I was thinking about. Mike Babcock
yes, the head coach.
Is the head coach. And I mean, he is wonderful.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, look what happened since Detroit lost him. I mean,
absolutely. They're on a decline.
Oh no, Detroit has collapsed completely. I mean, they're a joke. I mean, I remember when they had Lidstrom, and he was golden. I think it was not Lidstrom. Yeah, no, he was he was an offensive he was an offensive defenseman there. You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. I just don't remember his name offhand. But that team from 1998 to 1999, right up until 2008 when they won their last cup.
They had Lindstrom, or they had Lidstrom. Yeah, it was Lidstrom. They had Lidstrom. They had Zetterberg. Well, I think they still have Zetterberg. They had Datsuk. They had Helmstrom. They had, this powerful team. And, well, I mean, the only problem with Detroit is that they're old. Is that their core players are ancient. And, I mean, and that's why they're declining now, because, I mean, they haven't taken the time to find younger talent, which Detroit used to be famous for. Detroit used to take their guys, stick them down in the AHL, develop them, and up they'd go when they were ready. And when they were ready, they'd fill in for these core players. But they've neglected to do that, and now they're doing what Edmonton does, just finding their draft picks and saying congratulations, you're in the NHL. And you've got what's his name, Athanasios, and a couple other people there thrust out, and they're doing okay for what they've got, but I mean, it's not enough. And that's why I think you're going to see a very strong Edmonton in the future, which is Edmonton is growing stronger slowly. You're going to see Toronto's going to be incredible this year. I just know it. And Mike Babcock should have a statue of him built in Toronto.
I agree.
He has, I mean, whoever can nail down John Tavares, I mean, the probably the most valued forward. I mean, well, I can't say undervalued. He was always valuable, but on a team that isn't going anywhere. I mean, the Islanders are a joke.
Yeah, I agree.
The only thing that gave the Islanders anything was John Tavares. Absolutely. So to get him is, the feather in your career. You've literally got, the closest thing to Sidney Crosby in the NHL.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I was thinking today, just because the way my mind works, and I'm sure your mind works the same way, is I'm a big fan of, I'm not good with my hands. I wouldn't make a good carpenter, but I'm good in my head. And I looked at Toronto and what they did in the last 3 to 4 years to get where they've got. And I looked at Montreal to where they were and where they are now. And I thought about it in terms of government. Toronto is the government that every province and country wants, because they weren't afraid to rip it all apart and say there's going to be pain. You're going to suffer as fans for a little while. We're going to suffer as a hockey club, but we tell you it'll be worth it when we get out of trouble. And then you have Montreal, who's the government of everybody else that nobody wants. And I know that's kind of a funny analogy, but that's the way I seen it today. And I think that's for our blessed podcast, the Islander podcast, I think that's our government should take a couple of lessons from the Toronto Maple Leafs on how organizations are supposed to be run.
I think the Canadian government should too, because they haven't fired any of the bureaucrats involved in the Phoenix pay scandal. Like the whole. Which, I mean, I don't know how hard it is to fix a payment system. I mean, there's businesses that employ tens of Walmart. Just ask Walmart how their pay system works. I'm pretty sure we can borrow Walmart's.
Absolutely.
But I mean, this shouldn't cost Canadians billions of dollars just to use Simply Accounting. But I mean that might have been suffice. But I mean, that's the problem with the Canadian government and government in general. They don't do things easily. They're not going to learn until they've gotten nothing but lumps. And Trudeau is getting knocked out.
Yeah, I don't like using this word very much, but they inherited this problem, I believe, of the Phoenix pay system when it all switched over, but then they didn't know how to fix it. And there's been no real leadership on it because nobody knows how to fix it. So at some point, it's the same thing that we did with Muskrat Falls and Newfoundland, is when a new government came in, they should have said, you know what, enough is enough. We can't spend any more. We need to find something new or just go back to our old system.
Yep, that's true. We didn't learn a lesson. And this is the thing. I mean, I think the Phoenix payment scandal is so bad that it made Judy Foote leave politics. So
absolutely. And I think PayPal might be a better way to pay their employees at this rate. So
I mean that I don't know how that even is, how you can actually not pay your employees for months.
I don't know either.
I'm surprised they're not getting sued, or if they are, I'm surprised it's not been settled immediately. Oh, because it's easier for Omar Cotter to get paid than it is a Canadian bureaucrat.
Absolutely. And as someone who's come from a payroll background, I mean, it's very minimal, but I mean, it was in the oil sands. I mean, we've employed up to 500-600 people at a time, which is nothing. It's peanuts compared to government. But everybody's assigned a number. You type that number in, say, oh, look, well, nothing was deposited into your bank account. Let's talk to your supervisor. So I don't know what the issue is here. And they're not being very transparent on what those issues are.
No, yeah, it's ridiculous, and I don't know what's going to happen here. Like, I mean, I think they should just scrap it, because I mean that is their own version of Muskrat Falls. I mean, it's just we're getting it's just over budget, and it should never ever have gotten this bad, but somehow it did. And instead of putting out the fire and just saying, listen, we're just going to start from scratch and find a new system, they're just like, well, we can fix this. We can fix this by using the exact same system that no one is able to fix. But on the bright side, IBM is going to make a fortune off of the Canadian government. So,
oh, absolutely.
Time to invest in IBM, everyone.
Absolutely.
But getting back to the lovely, lovely island of Newfoundland and Labrador. Well, I should say the province of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah.
Although
still won't be an island if we keep sinking in debt, so we'll just be a body of water that people live on top of.
Well, I think what we're going to do is, I think we're just going to change our names and adopt a new identity so we don't have to pay off all this massive debt. We're just going to take the W out of Newfoundland, and we'd just be Newfoundland.
Newfoundland,
like,
yeah.
No one will know what's going on. They'll just be like, what is this new place? Or we'll market ourselves as Atlantis.
Yeah.
We've just come out of the sea, out of this. We've reemerged after centuries of being buried under incompetence. This is a forgotten civilization of people who drive quads.
Oh, Lordy.
But
it's going to be the only way we can afford to get around soon. So,
the only job that's really profitable in Newfoundland and Labrador, it seems, to be a ferry captain, because just on overtime, you're making more than most people make in a year.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, me and you have been looking at that sunshine list, and it's frightening the amount of overtime. I mean, we discussed this last year.
Yeah, and nothing changed. Nothing changed. It's the same old song and dance of, oh, Transport Canada says. Transport Canada says. Well, guess what? Hire more people and save some money, I say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure you can find a part-time ferry captain. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple around.
Absolutely.
I mean, but we insist that we've got to have the same guy who lives 5 minutes away from the boat, etc., etc. I mean, I think this is one of my problems. I mean, as a fiscal conservative, I hate regulations, and these kinds of regulations are what I think part of the problem. I mean, you've got to keep your boat running no matter, like, in case of this emergency situation that is 9 chances out of 10 not going to happen.
I agree.
I think that there's being sensible and being silly, and this is being silly. I mean, it's just like with the port of Stephenville. They're the only port in the province that has to have two tugboats guide any large vessels in.
Yeah, and our I don't know what you call it, causeway, is that the right word?
That little
Where they enter from?
entrance. Yeah, the entrance point. Yeah,
that hasn't changed in years. I mean, actually, the water got deeper because
they dredged it.
Yeah,
but I mean, the thing is that for clarification, I did work there for a time, so I mean, just not to sound biased in that, but I mean, I've seen one tug bring in large vessels there. It's not that hard.
Oh.
And I honestly don't know what's going on there. I don't know what politics is behind this. Cough, cough, Cornerbrook. But that's just the old Stephenville rivalry popping up here. But I don't know what's going on. But if they don't fix it soon, it is going to cost Stephenville another port owner. And we've been through a few of them.
Yeah, and we can't. And I think some of the problem is we don't have the experts running. I was going to say expertise. That's why it sounded kind of funny there. But we don't have the experts in Stephenville to properly run a port business. And I just find it strange. It might be a bit of a conspiracy theory. Sorry to cut you off, but before I came back, I attended a chamber luncheon, and the Port of Argentia was the speaker. And I found it strange that the Port of Argentia was doing a talk to the Bay St. George Chamber of Commerce when Bay St. George has its own port. And then no less than 3 weeks later, this story came out. Now, I'm not saying there's anything there, but I do find it a little skeptical.
Well, I all I can say on that is that I know the people who own the Port of Stephenville they're good people, and they do care about making this work. So all I can say is that, I mean, I don't know the whole circumstances because I don't work there anymore, and even if I could, it's not something I would discuss.
No.
But I mean, I do wish them the best on that. I mean, all I want to see is this area prosper, and I hope that this is resolved. But I mean, getting back to sea captains, like, man, I want this job, Lenny. I mean, I want to be a sea captain for the Power and Transportation.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it says here, the list, and I'm quoting this from a CBC article. I'm not sure who it was, written by Glenn Whiffen, maybe is the name. It's actually from the Telegram. That's on the St. John's website. On the CBC website. The list for the year 2017 includes numerous positions, such as deputy ministers taking home more than $200,000. Of course, that included part of their severance payouts. To provincial ferry captains and other ferry workers. So you even have people below the captain making over $100,000 a year, which is, from, if we learned anything last year, I think their base salary is close to $72,000 a year, and they actually almost double that in overtime payments.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's insane, when you think about that. And like I said, man, I really wish I was a captain for Transportation. that's probably it's you just get paid to sit on docks.
Absolutely.
And occasionally sail the boat when it doesn't break down.
Yep. And that's the thing. I mean, I'm going to crucify myself for saying this, but at some point, we have to look at feasibility costs here. Like, is it feasible to keep a ferry running to little airports where you have 2 cars on it at one time? Now, I get the argument. Well, it's in case of emergencies. Well, any emergency that's cost me over $100,000 a year better be big.
No, yeah, it is. And this is just another example of how wasteful our government is. I mean, Newfoundland and Labrador, and I believe, all governments in this country in general, sorry, have a spending problem.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, regulations play a large part in it. And I mean, I know that, the point of regulations is to ensure, safety and responsibility in terms of, different things, environment and public safety and things like that. But too many regulations is also a very negative thing. And I think this, like I said earlier in this discussion, that this is a perfect example of why.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had a conversation last night with a gentleman who his parents came from Hungary, and they said they loved Canada. And when they came here, it was everything. And they still very much do love Canada. But they say there's more regulations in Canada today than there was in Hungary when they escaped Hungary. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but that was their feeling on it as people who came from Hungary to Canada, that they feel they're more restricted now than they were when they had to leave.
Oh, yeah, and Canada's changed a lot. And one thing I'm worried about is that, the more progressive, quote unquote, we get, I think that, the more regulations come in, because, one thing about I find progressive governments is that they always have a larger bureaucracy, because they want to be all encompassing. They want to generally oversee every aspect to make sure that everyone is happy, and it never works out like that. So you have all these people making up rules that sometimes they don't think about the long-term consequences. You just think, well, listen, oh, this and this is happening, I need to have X amount of regulations here to prevent this. But nobody says, like I said earlier, what do we do about the long-term goals? What about the long-term consequences? Oh, don't worry about those. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And by the time you get there, everything's on fire, and you're just waiting to comb through the ashes.
Absolutely, I'm all for progression. I mean, that's somewhere where you and I have differed a little bit. It's in how much progression we need, and I mean, we're still very similar in a lot of ways, but I've always been under the idea that progression should be done by the experts. So government says this is the way the world is going. They just follow world trends. The world is changing. Government recognizes that. And then they say, which organizations out there support this kind of progression? Government can't run anything. Like, let's be honest. Like, I'm kind of sounding libertarian right now, and I apologize, but when governments try to run something, like, I'll just throw for an example, because we're going to talk about it a little later on, Marble Mountain.
Yep.
It doesn't work out. But if you took that into the private sector, it has a better opportunity to work out. And I feel the same way about progression. So if we talk about gay straight alliances, there's organizations out there that specialize in that type of topic, that type of world. So instead of the government regulating it, they say, okay, well, this nonprofit specializes in this, or this organization specializes in this. Every year, you're going to get X amount of dollars to help your research and help your development and to help your support. And it would save the government lots of money. But what the government does now, and I think all three parties have been guilty of it, is because if they weren't, they would commit political suicide, is they say, well, we'll run it because this is the way it is, and nobody knows better than us. But then they get in it and have to pay all this money to people that don't have a sweet clue, really, about the way it is. And I'm not insulting the public sector. It's just they're hired for this mandate, but they don't really know how to run that mandate.
No, yeah, and that's true. But Lenny, I think we should discuss the big white elephant in the room, or should I say the big white snowball, which is Marble Mountain.
Absolutely. We might as well go there.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we've grown up close enough to it, and it's just crazy because Tom Osborne has said that he's interested in selling Marble Mountain, which for me is something that I've been saying for years, that we need to sell it. And it's the happiest. This is one of the happiest days of my life. because the government is finally listening to the writing on the wall that Marble Mountain is ridiculously unprofitable. But being the government, they can't do something right without also doing something wrong. That Tom Osborne has said, we're not going to sell any of the essential equipment that makes it a ski hill.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, the snow, the lifts, and things like that. So either way, we're still going to be paying for stuff, which I don't like, because Marble Mountain has proven that it is not a profitable venture. And listen, skiing is a wonderful activity, but we're not a ski culture. I mean, we don't have the numbers to compensate for that. We are a snowmobile, outdooring kind of a people, yes. But you don't see too many of us on skis. It's mostly, the people who like something a bit different. Because I mean, as you know, living in this area, everyone's got a skidoo on a trailer or on their truck. But
Absolutely.
not too many people are trudging around with a set of skis.
No, and I mean, to me, this sounds like one of those 3P agreements, public-private partnerships. And I don't think in this case, as much as I'm a fan of public-private partnerships, I don't think in this instance this is a place for it.
Well, no. Marble Mountain should just be completely and utterly sold on the condition that it is something tourism related. Like, I don't want it to be turned into a private, residential development. I don't want that at all. I think that it should be utilized for some sort of tourist activity. And in exchange, we will give you some sort of tax incentive for X amount of years to encourage you to persist with it until it starts turning a profit. Mm-hmm. Because the government should never be involved in business, ever. Look at Muskrat Falls. That's a perfect example of a private business that the government should not be involved in. And I know some people might say that, power generation is a government issue. It is to an extent, but Newfoundland is just not good at doing things like this. We're awful. We've never been able to do a large scale project that has turned out to be profitable, except the Trans-Canada Highway. And I still think that was a mistake to an extent, because I think the railroad would have been wonderful for tourism. But I digress.
Yeah.
If you look at the season pass sales for 2013 to 14, 14 to 15, 15 to 16, and 16 to 17, persistently, except for 2015 to 16, they've been dropping. Except for, in 2013, student passes were 166. In 2014, they were 133. In 2015, they were 102. And last year, they were 90.
Wow.
You've got seniors, which is not a very large skiing market, because, I can't see someone who's, 75 skiing down a giant hill. It doesn't seem safe to me, but, if you're old enough and you can ski still, you're awesome.
Makes me wonder if there's any room out there for cross country as well.
I think there should be, but I mean, that should be a private initiative and not, the provincial government involved in it. But let's see here, seniors, which is 65 and up. 70 in 2013, 66 in 2014, 68 in 2015. Well, this is the year after, 2015, 16, et cetera, et cetera. And in 2016, 17, it was 60. So, I mean, that's another drop. You've got family passes, and this one was a bit concerning at first because 2013 to 14, you've got 821, which is not a bad number, those passes are pretty expensive. I mean, they'll cost you a fair bit. Then you've got in 2014 to 15, 646, which is that's a massive drop. It shoots up again in 2015 to 815. And then in 2016, it drops to 800. Adults, which are your besides your families, your bread and butter, were pretty consistent, reaching a height of 442 in 2013 to a low of 367 in 2014, and going back up to 412 in 2016. It's still a not an encouraging number, but long story short, if you look at all these numbers, it consistently shows a decline.
Absolutely.
And Marble Mountain, and I've said this before, I think on this podcast, Marble Mountain has never turned a profit, ever.
No, and the only years that it seems to go up is the winter after an Olympic year, which is very normal for all recreation to happen, which is an Olympic sport.
Yep.
I mean, curling works the same way, but listening to what you just read there, it seems like Olympics in 2014, it was down in 2014, but in 2015 it went up a little bit.
Yep.
And then the novelty wore off, and then it went down again in 2016.
It's ridiculous to see the expense. I mean, it's nice that these winter events encourage the sport, but the thing is, it's mostly people who, they see it, they think it looks cool, and they go out and they'll buy a season pass. This isn't all of these people, but I mean, there's a few. They'll go out and buy the season pass and think next week, I'm going to be, I don't know, Caitlin Osmond, or they buy a pair of skates and think they're going to be Caitlin Osmond in a year.
Yeah.
It's the only, or Brad Gougeau. Okay, I'll try to use a more Olympic. I mean, Caitlin Osmond is pretty awesome too. So, but just for an example, and then they'll try it. They'll have like 3 or 4 sessions and just be like, no, I don't like this. And then the skates go in the garbage, or the broom goes wherever your curling broom goes. I don't curl. I'd like to, but I don't know how. And that's it. It's done with it. And I think it's the same thing with skiing in that, people buy their kids a pass or two or a season pass, and it turns out the kid doesn't want it. So, it's just bang, that's a couple $100 gone. And then next year, the kid doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But either way, the thing is that Marble Mountain they didn't plan this right. And they never did. And I remember last year they gave out free passes for was it Easter?
Yes, and in mentioning that, I have that highlighted here somewhere. In 2017, the province sent $11,000 a day over the Easter weekend to provide free rentals and lift tickets.
Yeah, and that shouldn't have happened.
And that still landed them in the red, so they couldn't make it up. And I mean, I get promotion as, you might stay in a resort or you might buy food, but they still ended up in the red, which is horrible.
Yeah, but I mean, Lenny, they've never really ever ended up in the black, so Marble Mountain is a colossal failure in terms of generating revenue. Now, people might argue that, it provides, money and jobs for the area. Yes, but they're only temporary. For the most part, I mean, they're only part-time jobs, seasonal work.
Absolutely. Right here it says that there's 150 seasonal workers, and they're also members of Newfoundland Labrador Association of Public-Private Employees, so NAPE.
Yeah,
so you have 150 seasonal workers making a unionized salary with unionized benefits.
Yeah, and that's not right for me, because you see, once the seasonal work is done, where are they going? Pogie. They're going on unemployment.
They're
And
still stuck in the government.
yeah, and well, I mean, now it's the federal government's problem because that's what unemployment is the federal government's problem, or their responsibility, I should say. But still, it's still an expense. And the problem with Newfoundland is that we are encouraging that culture of seasonal work. I mean, it's not just, well, this 6-month job is done, I'm going to go look for I'm going to go to my 6-month job. Instead, it's just, oh, great, I'm on unemployment for 6 months. Okay, take it easy and relax. And, you're not, the money is just the money that you're receiving is public money. So it's just circling back in and it'll return to the public purse through your taxes. So really, it's not benefiting anyone. At the end of the day, I mean, it's not providing a net benefit. It's it's just keeping neutral because the money is just recirculating.
Absolutely.
But I am glad that the government is moving in this step. I would encourage them to sell the whole darn thing and stop being so hung up on skiing. It's time to, I guess it's time to melt the snowball. I guess if you want to talk about snow analogies here in Marble Mountain, but it's time to melt it because it's over with. It's done. And good on Tom Osborne. It hit, which is awesome because he was a conservative and he's doing something that is incredibly conservative, selling off government property to private business. So kudos, Tom Osborne, you lovely red Tory.
And I don't think it's you're right about the conservativeness, but the Liberals have treaded that water a few times now, and I think soon, thankfully, the only party that's going to agree with government running everything is the NDP.
Oh, the NDP. That's what the NDP is about, though, because you see, that's their traditional base.
Absolutely.
Is public sector unions. They love the NDP. They paid for their last convention along with the FFAW. So I mean, the NDP is essentially the party that represents special interests. And I mean, you might say, listen, no, that's not true because they're representing workers' parties or workers' organizations, but these unions, they, at the end of the day, they're still a special interest group, which, I mean, is no better than representing, the business class.
No, and I have nothing against unions. I think they do protect. No, I'm going to tread lightly when I say this.
Same here.
They protect the worker in one sense of it gives them the power to collective bargaining. On the flip side, it protects the lazy guy who doesn't care that once he's in, and you can't get rid of him. If you're a strong worker, like, God, this libertarian stuff needs to stop, but I'm going to say it anyway. But if you're a strong worker, you're wanted. You're absolutely wanted.
It's true. It's all about demand. It's all supply and demand.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Supply and demand is where it's at. If I'm a good enough worker and I'm in demand, I will get the pay and benefits I deserve. If I'm lazy to go to work every day and do the bare minimum, the union protects me and still gives me everything that the guy that's working hard gets, which is not fair.
No, and that's absolutely true. And it's all you can do, though, I mean, right now. And it's a really touchy topic that maybe in another episode of this wonderful podcast we've been doing for a while, we should address. Absolutely. But it's long story short, I am so happy this is happening.
Me too.
This was on my conservative wish list, selling off dead weight. And I'm sorry, and this is actually, honestly, I just want to say right off the bat, this is nothing against the people who work for Marble Mountain, who have worked there. I am sorry you probably aren't going to be working at it next year. I feel for you as someone who has lost, been laid off in the past. But you have to think about this. This is for the good of the province because this thing costs money. And it might hurt you, but it's hurting us all just as bad, if not more, sometimes.
Well, it
just
hurts all of us.
Well, they have just a more direct impact because of it. That's the best way to say it.
And you know if those skills are specialized, that they are getting at Marvel?
Yep.
I know there's probably nowhere in Newfoundland, per se, they can use them. But I mean,
Banff.
if you have people running the resort,
Banff.
So I believe you can stay at Marble Mountain overnight, can't you?
Yeah, you can. You can. There is no lodgings at Marble Mountain.
There isn't?
There is.
There is. Okay, so those workers can now go into the private sector and are probably really wanted because now they've worked at a high-end ski resort.
Yep, it's true.
They understand customer service and business. So now they're going to boost the private sector, and the private sector is what boosts the economy.
You're 100% right, Lenny. 100%. And no, it's good and it's bad. It's honestly though, I think in the long run, this is a good day for this province.
Absolutely. I just hope they change their mind and they. I mean, if you find somebody that runs the ski resorts, that's their business all over the world, good on you. Find it, sell the works of it. Because they know how to run it.
No, that's true. Especially the Swiss.
Sorry?
Hire the Swiss or the Swedes. They know a thing or two about mountains and snowing.
Absolutely. So. It seems to me like they want someone to take over the resort part and not the ski part. So they want to keep the ski part of everything else run by private business. Well, guess what? Private business can run the ski part better as well.
Well, I mean, it has to, or else it goes out of business. So, I mean, nobody buys a business with the idea of, hey, let's run it into the earth.
No, absolutely.
I mean, and this is not, the government's not going to sell this for nothing. This is going to be, tens of millions of dollars, I think.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. This is not going to be, $500 and, box of cookies.
No.
They're going to want some serious cash.
Absolutely.
So, whoever is buying it, I encourage you to have one heck of a business plan because I'm gonna love to see it. And if it's all fully private, I will go to whatever you set up just to support it because private business is wonderful.
Yeah. And you know what may be next after this?
What?
And I hate saying it, and I don't know if I'm educated enough to say it. Is maybe we look at a different alternative for Nalcor.
Oh my God, I hope so. I've always said that instead of building Muskrat Falls, what they should have done is just asked private business to be involved in this with the assurance that it will be built in a way that would not drastically affect the ratepayers of this province. Yeah. Because sorry, everyone, I have a bit of a flu, so forgive me if I cough intermittently. Just said that earlier. But like the problem with this is that Newfoundland has an electrical monopoly. It's Nalcor and Newfoundland Labrador Hydro or Newfoundland Labrador Power. And which is weird because they're a private distribution network. But it's a public utility, but Nalcor's public utility, while like I said, Newfoundland Power is private, which for me, I don't like. I don't like monopolies. I believe they are detrimental to investment and the financial success of any region. Because it literally strangles out all the other contenders. So be that Walmart's, be that in fast food, anything, a monopoly is a bad thing. Unless, actually no, you know what? In my opinion, it is all bad. And somebody may disagree, and I'd love to hear it in the comment sections. But I think monopolies are just evil.
No, I agree with you.
I'm a big small business guy, and the more small business, the lower the prices, the lower the cost of living, and the more affordable everything is for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, today, the PUB on June 22nd increased electricity rates by 6.8%. Now, this article is very confusing, so I don't know if Newfoundland Power got their, if this was zero rate increase application or if it was Newfoundland Hydro's. I've read it 2 or 3 times and I just can't understand it. So it says, and this is where I'm getting confused, it's in the second paragraph. Bear with me for a second. It says Newfoundland Power, says the rate increase is the net result of a flow through adjustment to its customer electricity rate, resulting from a ruling on Newfoundland Labrador Hydro's interim rate application related to its 2017 general rate application and annual review of rate stabilization accounts. Basically, your average Joe has no sweet idea what that means.
Nope. Even I don't. I'm rather smart in my own estimation.
Yeah, well, me too, and I don't know what that means. Like, I read it to my grandfather who spent a lifetime with hydro, and he didn't understand what it meant.
The problem with this is that they're saying that, they have an obligation to their shareholders, et cetera, et cetera. I don't care about your shareholders. Your company is turning a profit.
Exactly.
And
your shareholders are benefiting.
Yeah, but here's the thing. By raising the rates beyond the level where, the average Newfoundlander can afford it, you're going to, at the long run, lose people because people are going to have to move away. And I've heard people in where I work, I've heard people grumble about this, and people are preparing to sell their houses. I know people who are planning to move because the electricity is becoming too expensive. And and they've said to me, when Muskrat Falls comes online, our electricity rates are going to double. Well, there's people right now paying $200 or $300 a month for electricity or more. Who could pay $600 a month electricity? I can't.
Oh, me either.
It should be ensuring that you have as many ratepayers as possible, and instead of having the how should I say this, by discouraging these ratepayers, you're going to make them move away, because it's not just the economy that drives people. Well, that's the essential part, but also the cost of living has a significant impact on where people live.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that no more than on the West Coast.
Absolutely. It says here that residential electricity rates, depending on your service, will increase on average. So you and I, it will increase on average of 6.6% a month.
Yeah, but and if you're an older person, how are you going to, on a fixed income, how are you going to afford that?
So you can't.
And this is why I don't like this monopoly, because the thing is, Newfoundland Power is just saying, look, you don't like this, tough nuts. Who are you going to go to?
Yeah.
We are the only game in town. We tell you what the price is, and if you don't like it, oops. And the more people who move away, the more they're going to have to increase the price, because they're going to need to keep that profit, because that's what the shareholders expect. They expect to have that consistent, income coming in.
Oh, I agree, and it's getting to a point now where, for people like you and I who still live at home and trying to make it, Newfoundland is not becoming a viable option anymore. For people such as our grandparents, who all they know is Newfoundland, their only option remaining is to go into a home. So either way you pick it, it's horrible.
No, we're not looking at anything positive coming here. And the government is saying that, well, we're gonna pay to mitigate this cost, but
we can't afford it.
We don't have. Where are we getting the money? We have to borrow the money to do that. We had to borrow the money to pay the vast amount of severance to the unions, and we're doing it to QB now too.
Yeah, I noticed they signed a what is it, a tentative deal? I don't know what's in it, but
it's another handout. The thing is that, listen, I understand it's, the union has to do what's right by them.
Yeah.
But we need to understand that we have no money. We're borrowing from other people. to pay people so we don't have to pay them again later.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. And if it was me, if I was the government, I would just hunker down and say, look, I'd love to help you out, but we're just getting rid of severance. We're not paying it out. We can't afford it. It's too much money. If you don't like it, you can go on strike, but we'll legislate you back to work. And I know that's unpopular opinion, but we're not in a position right now to be friendly and make concessions. We don't have the money.
No.
We don't have a pot to pee in because we're still trying to get the money together to buy the pot. So we're essentially just, peeing in a bottle. And we still actually owe some down payment on that bottle.
Yep.
We're that bad.
Yes.
And I don't know what's going to happen. 2019 is close, and the elections are soon to be upon us.
Mm-hmm. It feels like it's already started. If you look at what happened in Labrador last week with all that money that was allocated by the Liberals, it seems like they've already started campaigning.
Well, no, they have. I mean, that's why, you look on the West Coast. Stephenville Port district is getting road work done.
Yeah.
All these other years, we've really not had that much work done, and all of a sudden, bango, out this amazing pile of money shows up to fix honestly a horrible road. The Whites Road is dreadful.
Yep.
And the Hanson Highway and all that, it needed some work, and I'm glad it's being done.
Do they have that completed yet?
Nope.
No?
They're about as far as Knowles Pond, and then it just gets terrible until you leave, until you get to Gull Pond.
Okay.
Because to go to that boat tour, I had to drive through there, and for anyone who's listening who lives on the West Coast, make sure your shocks are top quality, because it's bad. But they are preparing for the election now. That's why the money is flowing out. And I honestly don't think it's going to save them. I think the Liberals under Dwight Ball are finished. And if they're not, it's close, because Jerry Rogers doesn't have what it takes to lead this province. I don't think she does. Ches Crosby, I honestly think he's going to get it. And he might not be the most charismatic man, and even he admits that. But I think his heart is in the right place, because, I mean, the man is that rich that I don't think that he's really motivated by, self-interest or profit. Because, I mean, the Crosby family is pretty much the Bill Gates of Canada, of Newfoundland. They're richer than rich can be. They've had shipping and hotels and law firms and everything. So money isn't his thing. Unlike other premiers who will not be currently named, with construction holdings and loans and other good little things that they've gotten, and condominiums. Had to say that during the cough. But and now there's such scandals. But I mean, I think Crosby might be pretty good, because he seems to me like he wants to fix things. And I mean, he is looking at the insurance, which, as a driver in Newfoundland, it is high. I'm paying more for insurance here than I did in Alberta, which is insane. God, yes. Because they've added 15% tax onto my insurance.
Yeah.
But, it'll change. The election, the Liberals are going to get desperate, and they might get rid of that and this, and it'll cost us an extra $2 or $3 billion probably, with all the little goodies they're handing out. But hey, short-term gain for a long-term pain, eh?
Mm-hmm. So what's your prediction? I'll ask you right now. 2019 election night. What's your projection?
I say most of the West Coast is going to go conservative. Mm-hmm. I believe Stephenville Port is going blue. It has gone blue consistently in the past. I mean, they've had a few Liberals in, but before, who was it? It was Gerald Smith, I believe, was Liberal here, and after him was Tony Cornick. But before Gerald Smith, I believe it was Jim Otter.
Yeah.
And
Kevin Elward was in there somewhere. I just don't know where.
No. Yeah, it was Kevin Elward. It was Kevin Elward and Gerald Smith was in these areas. Stillman Flynn and a couple other people as well. But I mean, for a longer time, in the 80s, this was a conservative district. Somewhere in the 90s, it was as well, because I'm old enough to remember Jim Hodder being MHA. We had Fred Stagg. We've had a consistent conservative amount of MHAs here. So I mean, it's not hard for me to see Stephenville flipping back to blue, especially after we had three terms of Tony Cornick as MHA for this area, and Joan Shea.
I think so.
You were in the Conservative Party longer than I was, so you would know on that regard.
I know it's certainly 2 terms for Tony. And maybe
no, I think it was 3. It was 3 because remember he came in during the mill closure. That was when Danny was that the second term for Danny?
That was the first, I believe.
Yes, it was. And Tony was the candidate at that time. I remember that now. Yeah, he's been there about 3 terms.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense.
But either way, yeah. I'll say this right now. I believe Portabask, Burgeo Lapoil is going to stay red. Portabask is probably one of the most consistent Liberal strongholds in the province. It's only gone conservative, I think, 1 or 2 times in the last 60 odd years. It's ridiculously conservative. It's ridiculously a Liberal stronghold. And also, I think Conservatives might get Dale Kirby's old district of Mount Sion. I believe that because Kirby has put his foot in it. But I wouldn't be surprised if the NDP got it either because that's originally Kirby got in as an NDP, and that is still within the St. John's area, which is traditionally a very progressive area. Well, at least the center areas like that, St. John's, Kitty Vitty, Lorraine Michaels district, Jerry Rogers district, those 2 are staying orange. Now, if the Liberals pulled George Murphy out, which he is now a Liberal.
Yeah, I think they will.
They will. I've heard people say that they're going to probably run him against Lorraine Michaels' district or Jerry Rogers. I don't believe that because George Murphy's popular, but he's not beating Lorraine Michael. If she doesn't retire this year, she might. She's in her 70s. She's probably fed up with this. She's been in politics for a while. But whoever she chooses is going to get it too. It might be with a lower percentage, but they'll get it. And I say this because Lorraine Michael crushed Paul Antle. And Paul Antle was one of the Liberal Party golden boys. And I remember this because I was in St. John's during the election in 2015. And I was sitting down with the chief of staff of the Liberal Party. And they were absolutely dead set that Paul Antle was going to crush Lorraine Michael, and quite the opposite. And Paul Antle, for anyone who doesn't know, is a Newfoundland business magnate. He's quite wealthy. He's quite successful. And he's also a massive Liberal who's put in a lot of time at the party. So the fact that they threw him up against Lorraine Michael was a surprise. But when I thought about it later, I realized that Paul Antle in the past had competed against Dwight Ball and Kathy Bennett for the leadership of the Liberal Party. And it made sense that they would give him a pretty much unclimbable hill, which is Jerry Rogers. Or not Jerry. Oh my God, I keep getting my progressive NDP people mixed up. Lorraine Michael. You'll never beat Lorraine Michael in St. John's, Kitty Vitty. I don't even think the Lord himself could beat her. But and St. John's is a pretty progressive city, by our standards. I mean, before it used to be a conservative bastion, and I mean the outside of St. John's is pretty conservative. I mean, everything outside of it including Mount Pearl, is very Tory. But the city itself is a liberal is a progressive bastion. I can't say liberal, but politically it's very progressive. So I think at the end of the day, Lenny, my prediction is worst case scenario, minority PC government. Best case scenario is majority. Either way, the Liberals are not going to be anywhere as strong as they were. I think we're going to see a one-term Liberal Party. A first ever in Newfoundland politics. Because how many years we've been part of Canada now? 69, 70? We have never had a one-term government. Never.
No.
And I think this year, Dwight Ball is going to be that poor, unfortunate, Dudley Do-Right looking fellow who's going to lead them to that one-term government.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting.
Oh, it'll be fascinating. And election night, I think we're going to be covering that. And sure. I think it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful evening full of quite a lot of surprises.
Yeah, hopefully by election night, we have the technology to do a live stream with maybe a little count in the corner of seats.
And definitely. And I hope that we can actually do it in the same room, which is something that we struggled with.
Yeah, most certainly.
But I mean, we'll cross that gigantic bridge. For some reason, it's a gigantic bridge when we get to it. But you really wouldn't think it'd be that hard to do a podcast in the same room together, but it is harder than people think.
It is, especially when you don't live on your own.
Yep.
I think that's where the problem comes in, but we will rectify that.
The joys of having other people living in your house, roommates or otherwise. But that's all we can do. But I think, you're going to see a stronger Conservative Party coming up now. I think that the Liberals are on the defensive, and that's why everything is the Tories' fault again. They're back at that beating that dead horse with the bat. I think Ed Martin coming out and saying like how wonderful this was a stupid thing to do, because he said, "Oh yeah, listen, we're fine. We're soon gonna turn that profit in 50 odd years." Because he came out. I don't know if you've seen that. He came out and pretty much said, "I told you so."
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe the audacity, because even though I'm with the Conservative Party, I've never supported Muskrat Falls. I've always thought it was a horrible idea. And I'm just glad that I never did support it, because I never want to come off as a hypocrite on that. And to Ed Martin, please stay home and count your large severance package you got for quitting, which you shouldn't have got.
So can we say Ed Martin pulled a Stephen Harper?
I don't even think he's that good.
Harper went to Washington, D.C. to talk to President Trump, but did not tell Trudeau.
Well, Justin Trudeau, there's the thing, though. I would much rather Stephen Harper go and handle this, because Justin Trudeau, in terms of like, political and university grade education, he is nowhere near Stephen Harper. I'm not a huge Stephen Harper fan. I never was. I opposed his, privacy bill when he pulled it out. But lately, I miss Stephen. And that's blasphemy for any newfie to say that they miss Stephen Harper, because he literally said, "I don't need Newfoundland and Labrador to win an election." I mean, yes, that's true, but you never say that.
No.
But he kept the economy going. He got us through the crisis of when the recession hit. He got us through it. I mean, we took some damage, but damn it, we made it through in a
Mhm.
lot better shape than other countries did. So, I mean, Stephen Harper, while a bit dictatorial, deserves that praise. And I think personally, Trudeau should have said thank you to Harper for going down there and trying to sort this out himself, because Harper knows what he's talking about. He knows, he's a trained economist.
Mhm.
Justin Trudeau is a trained drama teacher. So, I mean, if I need someone to cry on command, I know who to go to. But if I want economics, he's not the guy I'm going to go to, because Donald Trump Trump is a weird force. I don't hate him, but I don't love him. I respect him because he plays these weird games with us. He's like the spouse or the partner that treats you like crap the entire day, and then at the last minute pulls off this great gesture. And gives you like a bunch of roses. He spent all the time bad mouthing Justin Trudeau, and then he says, "Happy Canada Day, everyone."
Yeah. No,
So
he's
I mean,
an
he's
interesting
weird.
character.
He is. But I mean, I give him one thing, is that he is America first, and I honestly wish the Prime Minister was a little more bullish like that. And I mean, I like the little trade war tit for tat he's doing.
Mhm.
But I also don't think that we should be angering Uncle Sam, because Uncle Sam can knock us out.
Mhm.
We're a beaver against an elephant, and we're not going to win. So if I was Justin Trudeau, instead of saying, this petty little, we're going to tariff this and we're going to tariff that, and all these little tiny tariffs are not going to hurt the United States. They're going to hurt us, but they're not going to hurt, the states. We should be saying, listen, and I said this before, Brexit is coming. Let's look to our oldest friend and ally, the United Kingdom, and say, look, we want to be the first country you have a trade agreement with. Let's do business. Let's have free trade between the United Kingdom and Canada like the days of yore. Let's utilize the Commonwealth, the greatest network in the world. There's so many doors to open, except India, because Justin ruined that one by dressing up like he was in Bollywood and prancing around the country for a week, which also cost us a lot of money. But anyway, I digress. There's so many places we can go to, and we just need to put in the effort. And the problem is, I don't think Justin Trudeau and his team are people who like to put in significant amounts of effort into these projects. They just want, the quick and the easy. And the quick and the easy is doing just business with the US. If you know what I'm trying to say here.
No, I certainly do. I don't know if I'm inclined to agree on all of it, but that's not what this show is about anyway. So
no, it's about discussion, my friend.
Yeah. But no, I think 2019 is going to be interesting federally and provincially for both of us.
Oh no, it is going to be, and I'm looking forward to it. It's it's going to be a whole new year of excitement and wonder.
Yeah.
Maybe some drama, maybe some laughs. We just need to sit back and let it all
and
take
enjoy
shape.
the show. Yeah.
Well, that's Newfoundland politics. It's just one big show lately. I don't know why we're not putting this out in the internet and selling it for subscription. Because I mean, I've tried to explain Newfoundland politics to people elsewhere, and they don't understand how we function.
No.
But then again, I've also told them that I come from a place where the last time we got really angry, we nearly lynched a prime minister. So I mean, we're people who do sometimes take action.
Yeah.
So it just comes down to waking the sleeping beast. But then again, St. John's is also cold, so people are usually too frozen to go and riot.
Absolutely. The weather's shit. There's no money.
That's what we hope to change here.
Yeah.
So I know this will make some people angry, but because of Newfoundland's climate, the one thing I am in favor of is global warming, because by God, we could use some palm trees.
It's funny.
But Lenny, I think we've covered everything for tonight, my friend.
Yes, I believe we have, sir. It's been another great episode, I believe. I think this might have been, and we say this every week, but I think this might have been one of the best we've done in a long time.
It has been about 2 weeks, and I just want to say sorry to everyone. I've been a bit sick, and work's been crazy, and I'm sure Lenny's been pretty busy with his activities.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, we're going to try to keep this constant, but, things do happen, and do forgive us. So,
Yep.
I guess you opened it, and I'll end it, I guess.
Sure.
I just want to say to everyone, have a have a very good Memorial Day. I hope you all did, and I hope you remember the sacrifices that not only the veterans of World War I and the men of World War I should say, made, but also our veterans of World War II, Korea, even some in Vietnam and other conflicts, and of course, especially Afghanistan. I hope you all think about their sacrifices and reflect on them. And if you know a veteran of any conflict or any or time in the armed services, this is the day to thank them. Well, also Remembrance Day, of course, but as you know, for us, it's important. But anyway, and also I hope to all my Canadian friends who aren't Newfies, and to some of the Newfies who do celebrate Canada Day more than Memorial Day, happy Canada Day, and please don't drink and drive. That's just to keep Matt happy. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, so from me and Lenny, thanks a lot for listening, and have a great night.